Today, we're looking at the insanity of Salvia. But, obviously don't mess around with your substances.
What if there was a substance that you could take that would make you live an entire lifetime as an inanimate object without even 20 minutes passing by in the real world? Well, guess what? It exists, and it's called Salvia. What is Salvia and how does it work? Salvia, or Salvia divinorum, is an extremely powerful hallucinogen, and the way that it affects the brain is very unique. The active compound in Salvia is salvinorin A. Unlike other more typical psychedelics which bind to a whole lot of receptors in the brain, Salvia really only binds to one. This is why the effects of Salvia are so unique. It works in a completely different way than other psychedelics. Regardless of which category you want to put it under, the effects that it produces are one of a kind. The trip reports at the end are of course going to be some really bad trips, but not every Salvia trip is like that. Many people report—
Chat, I will preface by saying, I have some experience with psychedelics, okay, and I think they're great, but shit I've heard about Salvia is kind of scary.
Having very eye-opening and positive experiences with this stuff. In no way am I advocating for it or saying that you should try it, but I also don't want to unfairly demonize it. The Mazateks viewed Salvia as a divine herb that could bring one into contact with the spirits. They would use Salvia to treat a variety of illnesses and ailments, even something as minor as a headache. Because of their belief in the medicinal benefits and the knowledge that they can gain from the spirit realm, Salvia is an incredibly important part to their culture. Often it is taken during healing ceremonies held by the Mazatec shaman at night. It's very important for them to hold these ceremonies in a place that is quiet and dark because the effects of Salvia are extremely subtle. Now, if you don't know much about Salvia, but you've heard some of the trip reports posted online, me calling it subtle probably seems ridiculous. But the way the Mazateks consume Salvia is completely different from how it is used recreationally today. They ingested Salvia in a process known as quitting, where you pick some of the fresh leaves off the plant, roll them up, put them in your cheek, and chew them. If you don't know how it's most commonly consumed today, we'll get to that very soon, but quitting gives a much slower onset and much milder effects. Are you supposed to smoke it? Salvia divinorum wasn't officially documented until 1939 by an American anthropologist named Jean Bissett Johnson. He observed the Mazatec shamans using Salvia in their healing ceremonies and took note of its
See, the problem now with doing some shit like this is there's nothing new to discover. Every inch of the world has been uncovered and explored. So you can't be an explorer anymore. You can't find any new shit. I'd be an explorer. If I was in wee old time, I'd be finding some new shit.
In the 2000s and 2010s, Salvia finally began getting more widespread attention throughout the US and the rest of the world. It being a legal hallucinogen made a lot of people curious to try it.
It's still
Powerful
legal
Salvia
now.
extracts began popping up in corner stores and smoke shops throughout the United States. And viral videos from—
That shit in a corner store is crazy, and you could never in Australia, bro. You could never in Australia. You would never get shit like that at your 7-Eleven, bro.
Salvia remained legal because it worked completely differently from other known hallucinogens like LSD. It also had no potential for addiction and very low potential for abuse, so it seemed like the government didn't really care too much. That was until 2010, when Miley Cyrus took a fat rip of that stuff and it went viral. And while Salvia is still federally legal, a lot of states cracked down on it soon after pretty heavily. Today, Salvia is completely illegal in over half of the country, with 29 states banning it completely. The extracts are made of dried leaf designed to be inhaled, and they are extremely potent, with many of them ranging from 60 to 100 times strength. You're supposed to use these extracts very sparingly, only using a few leaves at a time. But because nobody ever wants to do research before they do something, people tend to just pack a bowl and light it up. And shockingly, they tend to have bad experiences. If you've ever used Zaw or hit the cart, think about your first—
Salvia makes you a fucking super soldier, I guess. What the fuck?
The first time I ever hit a cart, it was not a fun experience. I was extremely paranoid and anxious. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I was sweating. Now imagine during your first—
I've had this experience as well. I cried my first time smoking Zaw, but it wasn't my fault. My friends that I did it with decided it would be a good time to do some MMA, some jiu-jitsu sparring. And so you know how it take a little bit for it to hit when it's your first time? It take 10-15 minutes. Anyway, I had one cone. I didn't feel nothing, so we started I was getting in on the jiu-jitsu sparring, I was rolling on the ground, My friend gets me in a fucking— not even a headlock, bro. It was like a skull crusher. He was doing this, a headlock motion, but just like on my chin, basically. And when he started doing that, I started coming up. I started feeling a bit faded. As he was doing that, yeah, everything comes in. And I start thinking my fucking head's gonna explode. I started crying and like panicking and freaking the fuck out.
It's really no surprise why there are so many horror stories about this stuff. One of the most infamous examples of a salvia experience gone horribly wrong comes from Reddit. My salvia experience gone wrong. They included pictures of the salvia extract they used, a 5th story window busted through, the landing spot, and various injuries. In the comments, the user elaborates, writing, "I had been eager to do psychedelics for a couple of weeks after a recent mushroom experience I had been the best trip of my life. I had heard about salvia and it being legal and decided it was the easiest thing to get. I purchased the strongest salvia I could find in my city and smoked about half a bowl of 100x. My friend tells me that I was making noises of pure fear and that I kept getting up and he kept redirecting me to the bed to lay down. He says when he was reading, I sprinted for the apartment door and dodged past him, saying I needed to get outside, and I pressed the elevator button. Apparently the elevator was too slow, and I looked around and sprinted at the window and cannonballed through it, popping the frame out of the wall, landing."
Oh, if you're the friend in your trip setting, you gotta work a little bit harder. Like, you can't be letting him get out to that window. You gotta tackle him or something, like.
My friend sprinted down the stairs, calling paramedics on the way down, and as I was on the ground and I asked if I should try to get up, and the small crowd that gathered all told me no, I was able to tell the paramedic what I had smoked. As far as for what I remember feeling weird and wavy and laying down. The only things I remember from that point on are a feeling of panic and seeing my friend's face appear to look like melting tar. My vision was black, and after the fall, I had an experience seeing 2 of my dead cousins sitting on chairs in the middle of a clearing in the forest with a chair next to them. When I asked them who it was for, they simply told me that it wasn't for me. I have gone through over 11 surgeries since then and can no longer feel or move my feet. I cannot currently walk, but am in physical therapy to try to regain the skill. I am in constant aching pain. Fortunately, the user would never regain.
That's absolutely terrible, bruh.
I watched myself grow into a tree for 20 years.
Now, I feel like this shit is false. I've never had that type of, like, time distortion. I have a little bit, but never to, like, the fucking 20 years went by and 10 minutes went by IRL. Like, it's just like the hour feels slightly longer or the minutes feel slightly longer. Never like this.
In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a calm, nature-filled scene. It was incredibly peaceful. That's when I realized that I wasn't myself anymore. I had turned into a young tree, and I have to admit, I looked pretty cute as a sapling. But the idea that I was stuck as a sapling forever hit me hard. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I could only watch myself as a sapling. Right then and there, I found myself compelled to observe my own growth into an adult tree. It seemed like 20 years. I was powerless, unable to communicate or take any action. All I could do was look around at the ever-changing colors of the trees nearby. After 2 decades, I slowly started to hear a familiar voice. I shouted, and my friend told me to shut the fuck up, although I couldn't see him. He eventually tapped me, and in an instant, my whole world snapped back into place. My friend was there, engrossed in watching Markiplier, which was the voice I was also hearing. I asked him what happened, and he casually said that I had been lying on his bed for about 5 minutes making moaning noises. I thought he was joking, but he swore it was true.
The moaning
I
noises.
recounted my surreal experience
really
to him, but he just laughed. Apparently not
Like, is he just sitting there like eyes closed like,
quite buying my story.
Like, imagine you do salvia in front of the hers and they're just saying you go like,
Salvia trip report. Lived 15 years as a ceiling fan.
Why is it why is it always inanimate objects? Why is no one ever like, I lived 15 years as a fucking warthog or anything? It's always like something inanimate.
The trip lasted for 27 minutes, but felt like 15 actual years. I experienced every second of every minute of every hour of every day of every month of every year without a pause.
I'm gonna have to try this shit to myth
Every
bust.
night I couldn't sleep because I was an object, so I would just wait at night for them to awaken. The first year, there was a semi-fat man who was bald on top and had gray hair around the side of his head like a horseshoe. He had a wife with blonde hair who was pregnant and would routinely walk around the house naked. They would watch TV together every night and often get intimate on the couch during their show. The first 3 years of the new year, they are gone because the woman is in the hospital giving birth. They came back with a baby boy. The entire lifetime, I couldn't register what any of their names were, but I often heard most of their conversations. It was just hard for me to register because I was a ceiling fan. One day, he got changed directly underneath me on the couch, and when I looked down, it was just blank because I had no idea what it would be like to change a baby. Throughout the years, I watched the son grow up. I realized he was autistic and had a speech impediment, often mouthing sentences and only saying the last word verbally. However, he did become quite handsome with blonde curly hair. I watched the dad, now completely bald, get fatter and fatter. I watched the mom let herself go. The last year, things started acting out of normal and it was terrifying. The boy's grandma, woman's mom, died. And even though she never visited and was never even spoken about, the mom sat the autistic son down to explain to him how death works and why they won't see grandma again. As she was explaining, her voice echoed through the room and her words turned demonic, and repeatedly kept saying stuff like, "Grandma's never coming back. You will never see grandma again. She's gone." And then quickly everything changed back to normal and she walked down the hallway like nothing happened. Also, I never knew what was down that hallway because I was perpetually stuck in that living room. Then finally, the dad went to go turn me on for the first time in my life, and I started spinning slowly. After the 5th rotation, I started going into third person out of the house in a bird's eye view. A second later, in a sudden flash, I was laying back down on my bed. It took a solid 5 minutes to realize where I was and who I was.
Obviously, your brain stores memories, like, with time and shit. If you get what I'm saying. Like, you go through 15 years, you're alive for 15 years, or whatever. Like, you can remember 15 years back, yada, yada, yada. But you obviously don't remember everything that happened in the 15 years. So the fuck does he remember everything that happened in the 15 years? Especially if he was just a ceiling fan and most of it would have just been, like, an empty room, I'm assuming. Like, how does he remember everything, bro? And how does the brain... Is the brain really storing 15 years of memory? Like, is it taking up his storage, or is it, like... That's why I don't believe it.
I took one lungful with the lighter held over the bowl the entire time. I held it in and barely managed to drop the lighter before all hell broke loose. Looking up, the walls of the tunnel were made up of my own face, repeated infinite times, each contained within the other. Kind of like when you have two mirrors facing each other. Suddenly, I became aware of the rest of the room as well. It was almost dark. The room was above the tunnel. The room was an isolated box. Outside the box, there was nothing. Nothing at all. I was struck by the most visceral panic I have ever experienced. It was even worse, and I'm really ashamed of this, than when I was fighting and failing to save my late wife's life after a fatal accident several years ago.
Holy random trauma dump.
My room was a box that contained all that was left of the universe, and I was rapidly falling away from it.
What?
Worse, by now something was sucking me away from it. Worse still, the lip of the tunnel, the uppermost of my faces, was collapsing, sucking my room, which was the universe, in behind me. I was aware that if I allowed this to happen, I would be responsible for the end of everything. I finally found the strength to fight against it.
By the way, if you're gonna do something like this, never do that shit alone, bro. Never do that shit alone, moms. Because when you come to it and you come back to reality and you're fucking sitting in your dark room, like, alone and shit, you're just gonna break and get depressed.
I'm listening to Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, and the song currently playing, Brain Damage, starts to feel absolutely fucking sinister. I feel like it's directed towards me. Some of the lyrics, if you don't know the song, are, "The lunatic is in the hall, the lunatic is in my head. You lock the door and throw away the key. There's someone in my head, but it's not me." Keep those lyrics in mind and imagine that in the background of everything that follows. So I'm pretty freaked out, and I stupidly decide to finish the bowl, put everything away, and try to write it out. Then I start feeling the slightest twinges of that Salvia book feeling. You probably know what I mean if you've ever done it. It's like your body is a book and someone is ruffling the pages down it eternally. I look at my feet and they're, how do I describe this? They're liquefying and floating upwards towards my ceiling. Time has slowed down immensely, and I can feel my memories and cognition slipping away as always happens on Salvia. I look at my ceiling and the geometry is just insane. And then, like a
Bro, how
train
these people
entering a
just sound like
tunnel,
pussies?
the salvia fully hits. I don't entirely know how to describe what happened. I didn't fully break through and lose all contact with reality.
Okay, I'm just saying, if I spent 15 years as a tree, like, I'd go mentally insane, bro. Like there's no way this shit's real. Just go get a quick reaction video out for the channel. I'm trying to do 3 videos a week, which is unrealistic. Probably gonna be more like 2. But thank you for watching. If you enjoy shitty reaction content, please subscribe. Or shitty gaming content, please subscribe.
Alright, whatever. Whatever?
Wow.
Whatever? You don't understand.
You're right. You are right. I have no idea what's going on with you. So why don't you tell me?
Listen to me.
Okay, champ. You got it. Go for it.